Hey, what's going on YouTube? My name is Robert, and I'm here to um, give you a video about me losing 50 pounds on a 40 days and 40 nights water fast. Now, this video is actually a long time coming because I actually did that water fast a year and a half ago, and it's tomorrow is December 31st, 2024. So I'm about to embark on a second water fast, armed with the knowledge of what I already know from the first one, the aftermath, and what I need to do moving forward to be successful long after the fast. Um, as you'll see in the before and after pictures, you'll see that since I ended the 40-day water fast, that I have gained some of the weight back, really a lot of the weight back. But that came after about a year, um, after the fast. And I can tell you that like about half the weight, or even less, a little bit less than half of that weight, was water, intracellular, extracellular fluids. That it doesn't matter what you do, that's going to come back, but like I said, that's for another video. I'm going to have a couple of subsequent videos after this one. This is solely to focus on the first 40-day fast, what led to me doing that 40-day fast, and the obstacles, the all the challenges that I faced before, during this fast, that maybe you'll hear and you'll apply it to your own life if you did want to do something like this. Or it doesn't even have to be a fast. If you decide you want to do a certain type of diet, or if you want to do OMAD or whatever, you'll face challenges in whatever you do. But in this particular case, for me, I was water fasting. So stay tuned. Okay, like I said, I went on a water only fast for 40 days and 40 nights, and I lost 50 pounds. Now, this video is not quite how I wanted to do this video. I wanted to have my studio set up already, but um, I've been so busy towards the end of this year, and so running out of time, I wanted to make this video for you guys and let you know that I am starting another 40 days and 40 nights water fast come January 1st, 2025. And so that's why I just wanted to get this video out of the way. Now, um, for those who like the YouTube videos or just want the meat of this video, is self-explanatory. A water fast is when you consume nothing but water. Now, I'm not dogmatic, so um, I also had black coffee. I had plain tea, whether it was green tea or black tea, and I think even hibiscus tea. So the teas with nothing added to it are fine. Um, just go get a box of bags. You can, what it comes like 20-25 per box, pretty cheap. And also allow myself, because I was traveling a lot. I was flying up to 6 days per week. So I also allowed myself, I had the bottled water, electrolyte water, and I also had the Powerade Zeros, occasionally, not all the time, because my my goal in this, as far as staying hydrated, was to consume at least 2 liters of electrolyte water daily, or more if you wanted to. And so most of everything I drank was water, black coffee, and like I said, I would have the T and the Powerade Zeros sometimes. But anyway, these are all thoughts, that I had um, directly after the fast, and I wrote them down. So you'll see me looking down a lot at the notes. But here we go. Like I said, I went on a water only fast for 40 days and 40 nights and lost 50 pounds. Um, and like I said, one more time, so you'll understand this. This is going to be a long video. So I know there's a lot of you out there who just want to know, um, the meat of the subject. And that's really like not eating anything. There you go. That's it. Now, if you want context behind a lot of this, if you want to know what led up to this, what my mindset was, what the background was, what finally made me snap and say, "Hey, it's time to do something." Stay tuned, because, like I said, while it's a long video, you came here for firsthand information and knowledge, of my own journey to, and it wasn't, and I'll go ahead and say this up front, it wasn't about the weight loss this particular time. I just want you guys to know that first and foremost, I was doing a hard reset, in my life. Certain things in my life were happening, and I just needed a spiritual retreat. And you don't, look, this is not a religious video or anything like that, but I'm a spiritual person, and just the things that I was going through at the time leading up to this, I was just tired of being tired of being tired. And that'll all be in this story coming up. So, like, if you have, I don't know, about 20, 30 minutes, stay tuned. If you just want to know what I did, it's quite simple. I didn't eat anything. I just drink liquids, calorie-free liquids. So I was losing on average, and it does come to average about a pound to I think I was losing on average a pound to a pound and a quarter actually a day. Early on, you'll be losing like 2 pounds per day. But over the stretch of 40 days and 40 nights, um, it's going to, at least with me, it averaged out to about a pound and a quarter per day. And the funny thing about that is, I joined a fasting community, um, and it's called A Healthy Alternative. You might want to look them up on YouTube. They have great videos, resources, and the guys there. I've learned so much from them. But in respect to this video, I'm just going to tell my own story. And like I said, this is not edited or anything like that. So excuse me. Well, I might be able to edit it a little bit after recording this, but it's not going to be any special effects or all this other stuff you see on other YouTube videos. It's just the real and raw. So here we go. Like I said, I went on a water only fast for 40 days and 40 nights, and I lost 50 pounds. All right. It was the Sunday morning of July 11th, 2023. It had been raining all week. Clouds, just gloomy gray skies every day. Leading up to this particular Sunday where it was bright and shiny, not a cloud in the sky, just nothing but sunshine. I went out to dinner and to the bars the night before, and I ate lots of bad food. I drank lots of drinks, lots of doubles, liquor, some wines, whatever. This is just something that I grew accustomed to doing every weekend at this point, especially when I would come into town because I travel a lot, and I come into town just ready to party up. I would eat lots of bad food, go way overboard on drinks, as evidenced by lots of drunken karaoke that I'm sure somebody has recorded somewhere. And on the way home, I'd loudly insist that my designated driver would stop by a late night drive through any of the usual suspects, and order way too much food and sweets to satisfy my late night hunger beast. And oftentimes I'm eating all of it, or none of it at all, because I passed out because I was drunk. I often felt guilty about the excessive drinking and eating the morning after. And the guilt was compounded with what I would wake up, the next morning with after passing out drunk. That's the bag of food I ordered on the previous day on the bed next to me. And I would often roll over on it or push it onto the ground from tossing and turning all night. Let me turn this notification off. But it was a vicious cycle, one that I cultivated over time and damn near perfected. At this point, I had already given up on the idea of a normal life, marriage, kids, a house with a white picket fence, dog, cat, the American dream. I accepted my fate as an eternal frat boy who had no immediate responsibility to anyone else anymore but myself. Um, I've never been married. I never had any children. And the few relationships that I had that I thought was solid, they both came and went in kind of short order. You see, my life had never been normal up to this point. My work schedule and time away from home was erratic. And once I explain why, it'd likely be easier to understand why it would be harder for someone like me to nurture and grow a relationship, let alone maintain one. But I had been in the transportation industry or the trucking industry for most of my adult life, right out of high school, pretty much, and after only 1 year of college. I guess I was somewhat following in my father's footsteps. My father was a seasoned jazz musician and singer. He chased his dream uh, all the way from his youth of becoming a musical star. I still have several pictures of some of the groups he'd been in, and I was just in awe of some of the venues he played at, even one that featured several heavy hitters like Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, and Count Basie. One day, though, after chasing that dream for so long, traveling across the country and meeting new people, he met my mom. He felt his soulmate at that moment, and from that moment forward, his life had changed. All of a sudden, life had become about more than just playing music, becoming a star and traveling the world in this fashion. Now, he was still playing music and would practice every day and was obsessed over chasing perfection. But now he had found love, and for the first time, he was playing music in the key of life. So they dated, got married, and altogether had 8 kids, including yours truly. I was the middle child. With so many kids, though, and the responsibility to feed all of us, my dad had to give up on his dreams of stardom as a traveling musician to be a rock star to us as a loving father, one who went to work, doing whatever job he had to do to put food on the table. Whether that job was as a security guard, mechanic, working in a factory, or eventually going to truck driving school, hundreds of miles away. My father knew he needed to learn a sustainable skill that would provide a career and a stable income that would truly provide a good life for us, and a safe one at that. And so when he got his CDL license, that provided endless opportunities for him and for us. But more importantly, it provided a lifelong skill that no one could take away from him. However, the life of a truck driver can be tough, lonely, and oftentimes dangerous. In those days, and to an extent, even these days, you can be required to be away from home for weeks or even months in some cases. And this caused lots of stress and emotional pain for all of us. But he did what he knew he had to do for us, and he did this for decades. and never wavered in his responsibility. Summers, though, me and my brothers were excited as we took turns going on the road with him. Times like this were the highlight of my childhood because this was my idea of what a vacation was. And since we had never been on a vacation, save the semi annual trips to the local fishing pier, this is all I had to look forward to for anything remotely close to a summer vacation. We traveled all over the country to places I've never been and to places that I never knew existed. And coming from a much smaller southern city, this was just eye opening for me. I always felt an infinite amount of sadness when the summer came to a close, as I knew that this was the time when I had to return to reality and go back home to my normal, boring life and routine, knowing that I knew there was a much larger world that existed outside of the smaller community I lived in. I knew from this moment forward that I didn't want to be normal, stuck within the small confines of a small town. But that full story's for another time. I had the honor and privilege of having two parents in the house, those who loved and cared for me and my siblings from birth until now. Now, it was far from the Brady Bunch or the Cosbys, though it sometimes felt like good times if you ask me. But my mother and father fulfilled their duties as parents, and my father instilled in me a strong work ethic, one that I would keep to this day. My dad died back in 2021, and prior to this writing, and right then for me, that's when everything changed. I already started my own journey as a professional driver years prior to losing my father. So I knew what he went through as someone traveling nonstop. My friend's dad had hired me to drive one of his trucks for FedEx when I had quit college years ago. At this time, I had no idea that there was so much money at the time moving freight and packages from one hub to another. So this was the start of my complicated and abnormal adult work life. It was the start of a lifestyle that relied heavily on eating out at restaurants, especially ones that served fast food. Truck stops were notorious at the time for both having food that was far more expensive than what you'd find much cheaper in your own local grocery store. And truck stops were also notorious for stocking their shelves, refrigerators, and delis with the most unhealthy, high fat, high sodium, high carb, and ultra processed garbage you could ever put into your body. So, while it was my responsibility to eat healthy, and I can't blame anybody else, the limited options that you have when you're traveling like that did nothing to help me. This is where the bad habits just really took off. You know, I'm 5'10.4 inches, and at my heaviest, I ballooned up to as much as 312 pounds. Trust me, I have the pictures too. I had developed high blood pressure, insulin resistance, lower back pain from years of jumping in and out of trucks high off of the ground, with the added weight certainly not helping. And fast forward to recent history, I've been going out a lot to bars and restaurants, whenever I would get back into town from weeks or months on the road. Now, I had dieted before and became successful at getting a lot of that weight off in the past. Um, I obsessively studied nutrition and fitness. I gravitated towards a fascination with the golden era bodybuilders like Arnold, Vince Garanda, Lou Ferrigno, Mike Mentzer, Robbie Robinson, etc. Though I would never become a serious one myself, even though I was in the gym. I mean, I had all the keys, all of the knowledge, or so I thought, to getting fit and healthy. But That wealth of knowledge isn't worth a shiny penny if you don't have the willpower or structure in your life. And so we go back to the night and morning I started talking about at the beginning of the video, to get back to right before the fast started. After a long night out, binging on food, alcohol, and bad karaoke, with not one girl's phone number to show for, by the way, I left the bar depressed. I felt like a rock star while I was on stage as the crowd cheered me on. We're all drinking, singing your favorite karaoke songs. Um, and, you kind of like feel like you own the world, right? Only to be alone again when I stumbled out of the bar after paying a large check with not much else to show for it, but my drunken, belligerent behavior then and afterwards. Not to mention the hangovers that often came the following morning. But the next morning was different. And I suppose that this is the payoff you, as the audience, have been patiently waiting for. So, excuse my rambling. But if you made it this far, thank you. After the night in question, I had mentioned at the beginning of this way too long video, it had been raining this whole week, with every day looking dark, gray, and just gloomy. Perfect weather to match my mood up to this point. However, this Sunday morning, after this night I just told you about in the bars, and after overeating and drinking way too much, I finally had a moment of clarity. See, I woke up hanging halfway off of my bed, upside down at that, and looking out of the halfway opened blinds on the window. And what I saw was the brightest sun I have ever seen, and the most beautiful blue skies behind it. It was at this moment where I thought to myself about the people who didn't go out last night and who didn't get totally obliterated like I did. Those who went to bed at a reasonable time and who were already up this particular morning. I was thinking of those who were getting dressed to enjoy such a fine day. Those going to church, maybe brunch, those packing up their vehicles to go to the beach. Meanwhile, here I was in bed, hungover and depressed, with plans of staying in bed all day and all night. And I know that sounds ridiculous. And just missing out on what looked like a glorious day outside. I asked myself, is this how I want to live my life? Before, I wanted so badly to separate myself from what I thought of as normal people, that when I would return to my small town after traveling the country, seeing breathtaking sights, enjoying the bright lights of the largest and most famous cities of our country, I felt like I wanted more than this small town existence. And so I always wanted to make this grand entrance when I returned from my travels, accompanied by my larger than life personality. I would go out on the town in grand fashion, work hard, play hard. But the truth was, I was just empty inside. And this larger than life personality was nothing more than a front for someone who had become a shell of himself. So I don't know why this particular morning everything came together in one great moment of clarity. But for the first time ever, the noise around me and inside my mind had become silent. And I saw clearly what I needed to do to start a new life for myself, encompassing my way of eating, a new way to live, and a new way to treat people, especially myself. So at that moment, I immediately said to myself, I'm starting a water fast. Cold turkey. I did, in fact, stay in bed all day and all night, but it wasn't because of depression and despair anymore. It was because of the start of a new purpose, plan, and the preparation I did that day. Did it all from the bed. Because, mind you, I was still sort of hungover. Before this, I had never fasted in my life, except for what we call concentrated fasting when I grew up in church. Probably most similar to the diet Daniel in the Bible did when he stopped eating meat and only ate vegetables and water. So I researched different fasting groups and facilities throughout the U.S. Um, Two of them that I found, one was in California and one was in Texas. However, the one in Texas, I mean, I don't know about that one. It kind of looked like a cult. And when I looked at their website and saw everyone dressed in white robes and such, I was like, nope, not doing that. Not trying to become part of a cult today. So, since I wasn't interested in a Scientology like experience, or worse, a David Koresh cult like experience, I looked more into the facility in California, a beautiful state that I already loved visiting as much as I could get there. However, the daily cost of a room to fast for 40 days and 40 nights there, it was more than I wanted to pay, especially for something that I could do myself. And that's when the light bulb hit. That's it. I could do it myself. I mean, why not? So I had inadvertently started what was to be 40 days and 40 nights of a fast, just like the ones I heard so much about in the Bible growing up in church. But this isn't a sermon, and I don't even really go to church much. But I'm still very much a spiritual person, and I do believe in a higher power. But I don't want to go off into rambling, so excuse me. Now, day one of my fast went by pretty fast, as I stayed in bed most of the day planning this whole thing out. And come that evening, I did go to the local Publix and grabbed a bunch of alkaline water from Fiji. The Fiji bottled waters, the rectangular bottles. So after that first day of my fast on Sunday, I would say that the following 2 days were perhaps the toughest of all 40 days of the entire fast. Though days 30 and 40 through 40, they did prove to be tough as well. But, more on that in a little bit. On the day, I would say 3, the evening of day 3, after drinking 2 liters of water, plain coffee, and having an occasional Powerade Zero, I wasn't really feeling too bad, aside from the hangover I had on the first day, And on the afternoon of day 3, around, I'd say 3 p.m., my energy had just returned back to me, as if I never did start a fast. To be honest, I was kind of expecting this at some point, but not this soon. I mean, I already practiced keto, carnivore, veganism, and every other way of eating under the sun. So this transition period I was going through was all too familiar. It was called the keto flu. At this point in time in the fast, I was coming out of that keto flu. And the keto flu is basically a process your body goes through as it burns through your glucose stores in your muscles and in your liver. And it begins to start producing ketones to become your body's preferred energy source. I don't know why I'm stumbling so much today. But this is when your body goes into what's called ketosis. Not to be confused with ketoacidosis, which is something different and dangerous for diabetics. Ketosis is the process of your body using its own fat stores as energy to sustain you in times of famine. In the times of cavemen, it was a much different time and place. You didn't have a Whole Foods or a McDonald's on every corner. So cavemen didn't know when their next meal would come. And you've heard this before. These were times of feast and famine. Well, the body is the most intelligent machine around. It has all sorts of processes and mechanisms to keep us alive. In this case, it has body fat, And stored body fat is what we have all around our bodies to cushion organs and to give our bodies the necessary energy it needs to continue to perform its daily functions when we're in a caloric deficit, and especially when our glycogen stores are low. And trust me, I learned that. I lived that. And since in Western countries we tend to have an abundance of stored body fat, fasting appears to be safe for many people to drop unwanted and unhealthy fat off of our bodies. However, our body does still need small amounts of glucose to function in places where ketones can't substitute. But not to fear, our body is wonderful and already has this covered for us through a process known as gluconeogenesis. This is basically saying that in times of famine, that your body can convert small amounts of fat and protein into glucose when needed for parts of the brain and etc. And while we do experience withdrawal symptoms as our bodies transition from burning glucose or sugar to burning ketones or your fat stores, after this process is complete, you go from having low energy from your low glucose stores to having a rebound in energy once your body makes the switch from burning glucose to burning fat. And the energy rebound is so profound because, at least speaking for myself, I have lots of fat stores. I have enough fat stores to power an entire city. But going back briefly to the transition from your body burning sugar to burning fat, it also had me feel a large amount of empathy for those who are addicted to other things like drugs. And while I won't take a deep dive into the correlation between those addicted to drugs, alcohol, and sugar, and the similarities in their dopamine levels with those who have addictions to different kinds of food, if you have ever been addicted to food, namely fats and sugar, know that you have more in common with those drug addicted people than most people look down upon every day than you think. But that's for another time to discuss. Okay, back to my 40-day fasting journey. On day 4 of my water fast, after already regaining some of my energy on day 3, I felt absolutely fantastic. Day 5, better than day 4. Day 6, better than day 5. Day 7, for the first time, I actually realized that I had a realistic chance of completing this entire 40 days and 40 nights water fast. And that's when I decided that I was going to do all 40 days, no matter what, and 40 nights. You see, while I did plan for a 40-day fast, I was really planning to just fast for however long I could last before transitioning to something like keto or a low-fat diet. I never truly, at the beginning at least, intended to complete all 40 days of this water fast. I was inspired by the 40 days approach from reading about it in the Bible so much as a kid, and more recently after hearing about an NFL player named Okung who had lost 100 pounds after completing a 40-day water fast himself. So with now having a full week of fasting under my belt, I further strategized on how to sustain this momentum without failing, And so I used this first week as the blueprint for success. And basically, I made every week after that a repeat of week 1. That's almost 6 weeks. That equals out to 40 days, by the way. I also broke 6 weeks down into 6 pillars, one for each week. These would count as major milestones for me in which I would recognize and I would commend myself all day long, even if only by thought. I then broke that down even further into celebrating every 10th day of fasting completed, making an even bigger deal about it than completing the 7th day. This way, all of these small victories turn into more frequent victories that I could celebrate, giving me the confidence when boredom and complacency try to rear their ugly heads. And it will. They will try to come at you all the time. I'm now celebrating each day I make it to the next. I'm celebrating every 7 days I make another week completed. And a few days after that, I was celebrating 10 days being complete, as that's a quarter of the entire fast done completely. But wait, there's more. After completing the 10th day, it was only a few days away from the second week being completed, 14 days. You see, it was all psychological to me. It has to be. That was 2 whole weeks completed in no time. All because I decided on day one that enough was enough. I was simply tired of being tired of being tired. And by this time, my sole focus was on occupying my mind and my time with working and learning, just anything to keep my mind off of food. And it wasn't because I was hungry, appetite already went away, but because I realized through fasting just how much time we spend eating food, preparing food, going to social events centered around food, as well as consuming alcohol. And since boredom and complacency are the biggest reasons people have to quit fasting or dieting, not to mention addiction, I knew that I had to keep myself busy with work, audiobooks, meditation, YouTube videos, even my fasting community, which I joined. Like I said, their name is a healthy alternative. It doesn't seem natural to not eat, and it's not normally. But this was a hard reset in my life, a reboot. This wasn't something I planned on doing forever, nor did I want to. But a prolonged fast at this point, um, it was beyond anything I'd ever think twice about doing, but it was absolutely necessary. Um, as to me, a hard reboot meant a complete overhaul, a complete reset of what was considered business as usual for me. It had to be something so significant to me that I would never forget the difficulty of each day I went through. At that point, my mantra became one day at a time, and I truly meant it. So I make it to the morning of day 21. That's 20 full days of fasting. And that added an additional celebration for me as I was now halfway through this 40 days and 40 nights water fast. From here and moving forward, there was truly no turning back. And I was prepared to die to complete this 40-day journey that I started. And at the end of day 21, you guessed it, day 22 was another celebration of making it a full 3 weeks of fasting, even though I had just celebrated completing 20 days a couple of days earlier. Half of the fast was over. Remember, milestones are important when you're doing this. And since the next milestone wasn't until day 28, I had a true full week, 7 days before I reached my next milestone. So I needed those two back-to-back days of milestones to power me through the next 7 days until my next milestone. At this point, I started to think about planning my refeed that was coming up fast. You know, I knew that the refeeding period was going to be just as important and challenging as the fast itself, perhaps. I also delved deeper into my studies. I can't stress this enough. You absolutely need to plan out constructive things to do before you start such a prolonged fasting period. You will not be used to having all of this extra time in your day to do things, so you need to be prepared. Boredom and complacency. I cannot stress this enough about how destructive they can be to you and your progress. They can stop you dead in your tracks if you let them. Whatever you need to do to stay busy, just do it. Just make sure it's something that's constructive and something that you can benefit from in your life. Whether it's studying to pass a test, whether it's studying for a promotion or a raise, whatever it is, whatever needs to be done, do it. I'm working on changing careers currently, and I've just grown tired of all of the flying and driving that I do in my line of work. So I started studying copywriting as one of my skills, about 500 hours worth. Um, also want to learn new languages. I'm also a voice actor, so I spent plenty of hours on the craft and business of the voiceover world. Um, I'm also no longer staying up late into the night for no reason, um, unless there was a constructive purpose. Not scrolling on Facebook or watching Netflix. Adequate rest was something else I was sorely lacking before I started fasting, and was something that greatly contributed to my declining health at the time. So now I was getting a full night's worth of sleep, and I was waking up feeling like $1,000,000. And so between a full time job, a very full time job, a full night's rest, and studying in the time in between, I had no time or room for distractions, boredom, and complacency nowhere in my life. And I also deleted social media. So now we get to day 30, the final stretch. So after celebrating day 28 and 30 respectively, I had the finish line in sight. 10 days until destiny, as I saw it. The first major accomplishment that I have achieved in my lifetime was within reach. I sensed it, I felt it, and I saw it. All I needed to do was what I've been doing every day up until this point. But just as you think that you have everything sorted out, life throws you a curveball. And of course, you guys were expecting that, I hope. So we get to day 31. All right, so I woke up on day 31 not feeling particularly bad, but not feeling as great as I've been feeling on all these past days. For one, I got out of bed way too fast, which made me dizzy. And for the first time during this fast, I had started to feel nausea. So much so that I rushed to the bathroom to bow down before the white porcelain throne. Most people call it a toilet. And most times when I felt this way, I would just dry heave. Sometimes I threw up a little bit of bile, um, but I started to wonder if I was reaching my tolerance level for fasting, and even started debating whether or not I should quit, considering I didn't know the issue. Um, this is where I did see the value in having perhaps some form of supervised fast, especially if you've never done one before, especially for such a prolonged period. However, I just stubbornly pressed forward. I mean, I made it this far, I wasn't going to quit now. And I just remembered what I said at the beginning about willing to die to accomplish this reset in my life. Um, I soon realized that what had happened was that I started neglecting my hydration. And that's what, was the reason for all of this nonsense that I thought was something else. Um, and I was largely right. It was not enough hydration. So I started super hydrating with my electrolyte water, either Fiji or Evian most of the time, because that was I was flying up to 6 days per week, and that was largely what was in the airports, and it was expensive, but I'm not buying food, so that's okay. Saved a lot of money in this 40-day fast too. But the nausea went away eventually, and I learned how, when I got up from the bed or when I went to stand up from a chair, to do it slowly and to not get dizzy. And from day 31 to day 36, it was just a war with my own mind, really. The closer I got to completion, I started to allow thoughts of refeeding to come into my mind. And that made each day longer to endure. Now we get to day 36. I found out that I was unexpectedly being flown home after this job I completed that morning instead of going to another job. Why? Well, because it was the weekend when I finished this job, and I didn't realize that a weekend job wasn't already pre planned. And so I didn't have work until the next week at the earliest. And I had been out 5 weeks at this point. So I spent the entire fast just all across the country, all sorts of airports, going through all different time zones, a lot of walking too throughout the airports. Um, and so that was tough. Um, Nobody knew I was doing this. None of my family or friends knew I was doing this. You see, the whole thing had been a secret. I hadn't told anyone that I was on a 40-day fast. I deactivated my social media accounts and just went dark with everyone. I just disappeared off the grid. I wanted this whole experience, this whole reboot, to be something that no one but maybe my mom and my cousin, she's a nurse, they were the only one who knew about it. And turns out doing that revealed some things to me as well. It revealed to me just how little some people cared. And that life went on just fine for them without hearing from me. Now, I can be a bit melodramatic about it all. But in reality, we're all just so busy these days. And everybody have their own lives that they have to live and navigate through. So, no hard feelings. Now, at this point, I get a flight from the northeast to the southeast on a Saturday morning. And so I'm home that Saturday afternoon. And so that Sunday, the next day, I actually went to the movies. And that's, of course, is day 37. We're getting there, guys. And I had to face the demons I faced earlier in the fast. I went to the movies, I want to say like 2 weeks into the fast, and it was a disaster. I totally forgot about how heightened my senses were. Now, after I started fasting and detoxing. And so when I walked into the theater the first time, I was immediately met with the most heavenly and buttery smell of popcorn. Lots and lots of popcorn. And I never realized that popcorn was my kryptonite. I was just pacing in the lobby. I was trying to think of anything to get my mind off of the food, the candy, and slushes I saw. It was just a bad overall experience. I wasn't ready, but I made it through. And remember, that was earlier in the fast. So this next time I was actually in the movie theaters. I knew what was waiting for me when I got there, and I just knew that I could do it. That wasn't going to be the problem, dealing with the smells of the popcorn, the food, or whatever. And so now, being armed with the proper mindset, all of that stuff didn't bother me. And I enjoyed the movie with an ice cold bottle of water. And so now we get to the final 3 days. And I know you guys have been waiting for this. I know I've been rambling, but you need to hear all of this to understand what I went through. So after everything I had previously been through in the early days and even some of the latter days of this fast, the last 3 days, guess what? They were largely uneventful and they were quiet, believe it or not. Yep. After everything I had been through, the last 3 days went without issue. But how? You see, my mind was clear. I had finally reached that true clarity in my mind. It's like my thoughts were washed clean of all the negativity I had dealt with at the very beginning of the fast. All of the regret, all of the disgust with myself, all of the arrogance I've known, I just felt was all washed away now. I had a clean slate. And so now we get to day 40. 40 days and 40 nights of water fasting and also allowing myself, black coffee, plain tea, and occasionally zero sugar Powerades to help with electrolytes. Um, I can proudly say that I got rid of a lot of toxicity in my life. My mind was clear. I learned a lot about myself and the toxic behavior, habits, and people I no longer needed in my life. As another benefit, I lost 50 pounds. That's right. I had little to no loose skin, which a lot of people say you'll get. I didn't. I maintained most of my muscle mass, and my fasting blood glucose levels were crazy stable. In fact, after the first 5 days of fasting, that it just like was stable at 75 to 80 the whole fast. I mean, just no peaks, no crashes at all throughout the day. Just a straight line. The body and mind in sync are a powerful weapon. So is determination and getting to a point in your life when you're tired of being tired of being tired. So as for day 41 and beyond, I'll save that story for another day in part 2, the aftermath of completing a 40-day water fast. And that's the gist of it. The first 40 days of fasting, or the 40 days of fasting, it was a challenge. And I accepted that challenge because, like I said, I was tired of my old life. I needed a fresh reboot. And so there's nothing stronger than that feeling. Um, when you get to the point to where you feel like you've eaten everything, hamburgers, pizza, chicken, whatever, and like you just don't crave it, and like there's not enough liquor in the world to satisfy you. Something had to change, and so the next video I'm going to talk to you about the aftermath. How long that weight loss lasted, which it lasted a good while. It lasted over a year, and it's only because I backtracked on some things, on some behaviors um, that were detrimental. Um, Nowhere near as bad as the first time though. Um, but so a lot of people go into diets and fasting or whatever. They get to their ideal weight and they just think, okay, I reached my goal. That's it. I'm safe. I'm forever fit again. We fail to realize that that's only the beginning. Um, you have to maintain that. There's no going back to your past destructive behavior, your past patterns, because those past patterns and behavior is what got to you to where you were. So you have to choose a new path to stay where you're at once you accomplish your goals. And that's what we'll get to in the other videos. For now, I'm sorry this video was probably too long and unmanicured, but this is the real and raw, and this is what I want you guys to see. This journey was tough, but hunger is not what you're going to be dealing with on this fast as the number one um, reason why people quit. It's boredom and it's just complacency, and you're going to find that out once you get rid of all this uh, all the going out, all the drinking, all the eating out at restaurants, all these events that are surrounded by food. You're going to realize the reason why you didn't have a lot of time in your life is because you surrounded your life with so many activities that meant really nothing. That's were surrounded by food and alcohol. Scrolling on Facebook all day, Instagram, TikTok, watching Netflix, binge watching Netflix, not exercising or anything. Which that's another thing I wanted to bring up. The only exercise I did on this 40 days and 40 nights water fast was a lot of walking. I was doing a lot of walking because, as I said, I was the last 2 years of my career, I was flying up to 6 days per week. There were times where I would be in every time zone in our country in one day. So it was a lot of walking, but also a lot of sitting too, because I told you I drive a lot too. So this is not um, going to involve a lot of working out. Um, if you can do some walking, that's fine. But um, this was a spiritual reboot for me, and just resetting of my mind. But the byproduct of that was substantial weight loss and substantial fat loss in there. About say about a little bit less than half of the weight you lose will be water weight. Like I said, your intracellular, extracellular fluids, um, that comes back no matter what you do. Um, I was eating salads. I think I had a salad one time with swordfish or, yeah, clean as can be. Grilled swordfish. And, the water just comes back. I know we talk about carbs bring back a lot of that water, but I wasn't having carbs, or very, very little carbs I was having. So just your body bringing like food back into the system, and that digestion system getting back to work. Because trust me, your digestion system is off. I mean, it's sleep when you're doing this fast. And you can ask me how I know. I'll explain that in later videos. But um, if you saw some value in this video and you want to follow along, because January 1st, 2025, I'm starting a new 40 days and 40 nights water fast. And I'm going to document this journey as well. I'm going to document it on YouTube this time. I wanted to do that last time, but I was so lazy and just wasn't motivated enough to do that. And I didn't, when I got motivated, I didn't want to like start halfway through the fasting journey. So anyway, if you guys would follow along with me. If you have any questions, ask in the comments. I'll, when I'm not busy, I'll try to answer as many as I can. Keep it civil, and we can all learn from each other. So go through this and see. Maybe you object. You have an objection to fasting. That's fine. I never thought I would fast a day in my life. But here I am, like, doing 40 days and 40 nights. And I'm not suggesting everybody do that, but it worked for me. And with that, I'll leave it right there. Like, subscribe, comment, tap the bell notification for the new videos that will be coming up soon. Have a nice day.